In other action at the Capitol today, a House passed a bill that strengthens parents' joint custody agreements. The proposal says that in uncontested divorces, joint custody agreements stand unless judges find specifically that the agreements hurt the children involved. Sponsor Ray Holland says judges are now allowed to reject agreements simply because they don't like joint custody.
What we're finding in Georgia is that we have an inconsistent treatment of this particular issue around the state. And all this bill does is to provide that when it refers to joint custody, that we're talking about joint custody as this General Assembly has already defined it in Code Section 1996, and also that if the judge refuses to accept the agreement of the wife and the husband as to the custody of the children when they have chosen voluntarily to use joint custody, that when the judge makes those specific factual findings, that he must make those factual findings as they apply to that specific child and those specific parents. And also it adds one final sentence that says that the judge may not refuse to adopt this agreement as to joint custody that the husband and the wife have agreed to voluntarily, based solely on the fact that they use joint custody. This bill has nothing to do with the bill that has to do with a presumption of joint custody that's in another committee of the House. And if there are any questions, I'll be happy to accept them.
Gentleman from the 59.
Gentleman, yield.
I yield.
You say that this bill has nothing to do with presumptive joint custody, but let me ask you a question. Let's say that two people who are undertaking a divorce decide on their own that they want to enter into a joint custody agreement, and they submit an agreement under this. Does this mean that the judge has to accept it?
This does not mean that the judge has to accept it. The judge has the right to refuse to accept the agreement under current law and would continue to have the right to refuse to accept the agreement under this code section. The current law says that if he refuses to accept the agreement, he must make specific factual findings. Now, that's just a generality and doesn't say what he has to put in those factual findings. This bill says that those factual findings, if he turns this agreement down that's been voluntarily entered into between the husband and wife, must specifically relate to that child and those specific parents in that case, not just a general finding. For example, that the judge, even if the parties have agreed to joint custody, himself just doesn't like joint custody as a personal opinion of that particular judge.
Somewhere along the way, isn't it true that all the efforts we've made in behalf of children's rights, somewhere the child, I think, maybe should have an opportunity to be heard in the court? And that's just a personal opinion.
I certainly agree with you, and I think that the laws of Georgia already give the opportunity under the code section you referred to when the child can make a choice as of the age of 14. That gives the child the opportunity to make his or her wishes known to the court, and the court can then investigate that situation, and that's again another code section, and determine, unless there are specific reasons why the child's wishes should not be complied with, the child's wishes are complied with. And you find often in divorce cases, and you often find as a child reaches the age of 14, that one of the parents that the child chooses makes a change of custody petition. But that's not what this code section is about. This code section is the existing code section that deals with a written agreement between parents as to child custody, and when those parents have chosen joint custody, it simply deals with a more strict procedure that a court would have to follow in order to decline those parents' choices regarding joint custody when they choose joint custody, and would not in any way limit the choice of the child as of the child's 14th birthday, nor would it in any way limit another code section that dealt with grandparents' rights in Georgia.
The bill passed the House and now goes on to the Senate.